been incredible. Coming to this show, you should expect the biggest tackles, strongest hits.
Speed, strength, a little bit of drama.
Gladiators, the UK Live Tour 2025. From the OVO Arena, Wembley, London. Starts Sunday, the 30th of November from 6 p.m. Exclusively only on Jackpot Button Lewis 1. Now Leighton and Build here on 2 as we now head to the Nürburgring in Europe for round 14 of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship as we bring you full extended race highlights of the 1995 European Grand Prix. Introduced by Jack Wright with live race commentary from Murray Walker in Grand Prix Formula 1. What a superb race victory! For the first time ever in his Formula 1 career, Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine takes his first race victory of this year's Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship and winner of the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril as David Coulthard comes at a very unfortunate second place. A truly remarkable result last time out at Estoril for the Portuguese Grand Prix for the Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, as for the first time in his Formula 1 career, he took his first ever Grand Prix race victory for also not just for Eddie Jordan's Grand Prix Formula 1 team. And as we head to the final race of the second European leg of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, can Eddie Jordan and the luck of the Irish's winning streak continue? Well, you can find out right now here on Grand Prix Formula 1 as we bring you full extensive race highlights of round 14 of the 1995 Formula 1 season with the European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring. With only 4 races left in this year's Reimagined F1 season, this is the European Grand Prix. Here from the circuit of the Nürburgring, former host circuit of the German Grand Prix. German racing fans are delighted to have a second Grand Prix in their country again this year, and they're hoping for a win from their national hero, Michael Schumacher, who won last year at the European Grand Prix, but at the circuit of Jerez in Spain. And returning from a two-race ban, he took his 8th victory of the season by 24.6 seconds from his Drivers' Championship rival, Britain's Damon Hill in his Williams, with once again the flying Finn of Mika Hakkinen taking another 3rd position in his McLaren Peugeot. This victory put Schumacher 5 points ahead of Hill with 2 races remaining in the 1994 F1 season, while Benetton regained the lead of the Constructors' Championship from Williams-Renault. The fans here in Germany would also like to see an impressive performance from fellow German Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Sauber too. For the second time hosting the European Grand Prix since 1984, drivers seem to like this 2.8-mile circuit, even though the flow of the corners from around it has been broken up by the final Vidal chicane. And last time out at Estoril for the Portuguese Grand Prix, after suffering heartbreaking tyre wear problems and spinning out with only a few laps to go from the finish line, Williams-Renault's David Coulthard narrowly missed out on another race victory, but remarkably, Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine in his total-sponsored Jordan Grand Prix and Peugeot engine car took his first ever Formula One race victory in his entire career and Jordan's Grand Prix first race victory in their team's history. Once again narrowly missing out on his 5th win of the season, David Coulthard had to make a last lap pit stop and managed to hold off for 2nd place on the podium. And unbelievably, for a 3rd time as of this season, we once again had another British 1-2-3 podium, with the Englishman Johnny Herbert driving in his Benetton Renault, took once again another 3rd place. So now as we reach the final race of the 2nd European leg of this year's championship, the current weather conditions here at Nürburgring have got other things on their minds for both the drivers and teams, as a recent spell of rain hit the circuit from just a few hours before the start of today's race, making the conditions wet and slippery, and it can be a real challenge for most of the drivers as of this race weekend. After previously missing out on the German Grand Prix to win in front of their home fans, will Michael Schumacher for Benetton and Heinz-Harald Frentzen for Sauber do an impressive performance in front of their home fans for the 2nd time this year? Well, there's only one way, is to find out. Good evening, all you Formula One fans out there. My name is Jack Wright, and welcome to another edition of Grand Prix Formula One and to full extended race highlights of round 14 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula One World Championship with the 1995 Grand Prix of Europe here at the Nürburgring, even though, of course, it is based in Germany, but it is once again the second, of course, racetrack to be based in Germany, but to be a part of, once again, the 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship. And just to remind you, if you are watching this right now on YouTube, we would just like to apologise once again also for the delay in the upload of this video. This is once again down to other things and other projects that have been happening outside of this series in the Jackpot Button Lewis Productions universe. But we would also like to remind you that We have got a very exciting race in prospect, and we will of course be bringing you in a few weeks time the next round of this reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, with the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix also from TI Circuit AIDA in a few weeks time, and we of course are working extremely hard to get that out as soon as possible for all of you viewers who once again I would just like to say a huge thank you to all of you for your patience as always. It's definitely been a challenge to bring this series to all of you retro Formula 1 fans out there, and of course if that was anything to go by with what happened this time last time out at the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril, and as you can see very appropriately I am quite proud to also be wearing one of the exact team shirts that was worn by the very team of Total Jordan Grand Prix, of course Formula 1 team powered by Peugeot engines. And we also have to have also, I thought, because of the remarkable achievement that Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, when he remarkably and unbelievably took his first race victory of this reimagined F1 season, and also in his entire Formula 1 career, he has once again won his first Formula 1 Grand Prix race in his career, and also a career best also, and not just for himself but also for the team of, once again, the Total Jordan Grand Prix team, taking their first, not just podium as of course on the top of the podium, since they already had Rubens Barrichello win, of course, or actually sorry, finish third at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone from earlier on this year. But to see another podium finish, but to get their first race victory, Eddie Jordan was overjoyed with the result, and all of the hard-working members of the Jordan Grand Prix team were celebrating into the early hours with that all-important race victory. But with also that being said, we can also clarify that despite an unfortunate spin from, of course, the Scotsman of David Coulthard in his Williams, he ended up spinning his car on the 69th lap and only 2 laps away from winning his 5th victory of this particular championship as well. But and amazingly, we also, if you did see at the top of the program, we also did have amazingly, for the 3rd time in this reimagined F1 season, another British driver 1, 2, 3 finish on the podium, with also Englishman Johnny Herbert in his Williams, sorry, my apologies, Benetton Renault, even though of course I know that they do have the same engine supplier as Williams do. He took 3rd place there, and just missing out on the podium was the Frenchman John Alesi, taking 4th place. Another great points finish for the Finnish driver Mika Hakkinen in his Marlboro McLaren Mercedes, and Olivier Panis round off the top 6 for scoring points with another points finish for Ligier Mugen Honda as well there. And just outside we also did have Heinz-Held Frentzen of Germany, along with his Frenchman teammate of Jean-Christophe Bouillon in both of the Red Bull-sponsored Sauber Fords, and just also amazingly getting into the top 10, but missing out on the points, the Italian driver Massimilio Max Papis finished in 9th place, behind by 4 laps. And then, unbelievably, in only just his first race in Formula 1, the Swiss driver of Jean-Denis Delatraz, for the first time since, of course, racing for Larousse last season, he managed to get in the top 10, behind also by 4 laps, while David Coulthard, despite losing, of course, that all-important race victory due to that unexpected spin due to worn tyres on his car, he managed still to set the fastest lap of 1 minute 25.226 hundredths of a second. So, but it was an eventful but incredible race to watch last time out here on Grand Grand Prix Formula 1. And of course, with this edition of this very same playthrough series with this episode, we have got another exciting race in just a few minutes time. And we can also just clarify and also check outside of our of course studio that just under or behind us, or from behind our cameras in the studio, we've got a great view of, once again, the Nürburgring circuit. And unbelievably, this is actually I think it was, to clarify, the second time that this track has hosted the European Grand Prix, because this time last year, it was at the circuit of Jerez in Spain. But it's interesting to know also, this is the first one to be held at of course, the Nürburgring since, of course, 1984, as we just mentioned. So it's been over 11 years since the track was last hosted the Grand Prix here. And it's interesting to know that also this is another track that due to commercial disputes involving the circuit's promoters, it has been off the calendar since, and it's also was facilitated its return to the Formula 1 World Championship, Grand Prix Championship schedule, and it was facilitated by a surge of interest within the sport throughout the country of Germany as a result of Michael Schumacher's driver's title as the current world champion from last year also as well. We do know that it was a late replacement for the cancelled Argentine Grand Prix that happened from earlier on this year, but it was also going to be introduced from last year, also in 1994. And this is the third time, unbelievably, that the short GP Streck layout has also been used, and rather than the 23-kilometre Nordschleife circuit, which was last used back in 1976, following a near-fatal accident from Niki Lauda. I'm sure if you Formula 1 of course enthusiasts and brain boxes out there know that very well. But we can also we have checked that also the weather is a lot more different than it was, because we've had a nice streak of dry weather races, but as it stands, it is kind of lightly falling with rain at the moment. There was a lot of course, a spell of rain, not as heavy as what we've had in previous races that fell just a few hours before the race start. So it's going to make it very interesting. So this is actually, unbelievably now, I think the fourth wet weather race that we've had so far as of this year. And of course, it's going to be all that important, because especially this is another home race, as we said at the top of the programme, for Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton Renault, and of course also Heinz-Harald Frentzen, as we mentioned, also in his Sauber Ford. And of course, we do know that Michael Schumacher sadly missed out on, of course, winning his home race, but he still managed to, I think, finish in the points. And we've also got a few updates as well with some of the driver changes, because also we can also clarify that following an unexpected accident that the Japanese driver Yukio Katayama for the Tyrrell team, the Tyrrell Yamaha team, they're sponsored by the mobile phone company of Nokia. They did say that to race on doctor's advice following an unexpected accident that happened from the last race. And we can also clarify this on what exactly happened. And we do know that he was, after his accident, he had been already hospitalised for 2 days after his accident, when his car rolled and launched airborne and rolled several times upside down along the start and finish straight. And he was later diagnosed with a strained neck injury and also bruising, being following the aftermath of that crash. Luckily, Luca Badoa got away unhurt, even though he did tag Katayama. So in his place, we can clarify that since this has happened, someone else is going to be replacing him, and of course we'll get to that very, very shortly. But with that being said, let's quickly remind you of the current situation in the FIA, of course, Reimagined 95 FIA Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship and also Constructors' Championship tables at the moment so far. And once again, with that unexpected but remarkable race victory there for Eddie Irvine, but that still hasn't made much difference among the front runners at the top of the Drivers' Championship table so far. David Coulthard still continues his lead with 57 points and is only 11 now. It's now closed down to 11 points now over Michael Schumacher, who is in, once again, second place with 46 points. And then 8 points behind him is Damon Hill in third. And then in fourth place, just by a few points, and make that only 4 points difference between him and also himself as well, that being Mark Blundell in his McLaren Mercedes with 34 points. 3 points behind him in fifth place is Johnny Herbert, and then in sixth place is John Alesi with 27 points, just also 4 points behind him as well. After all-important points scored, as we said, of course, he finished in fourth and managed to get 3 points last time out at the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril, meaning that he also once again is now just a few points ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who is in seventh place with once again 24 points. And after that remarkable race victory, as we just said there, Eddie Irvine, even though he of course that's his first race victory in this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula 1 World Championship, he now moves up to 8th place from amazingly 12th, and he's got 15 points at the moment, and he's now unbelievably 2 points ahead of Gerhard Berger, who is currently in 9th place at the moment. And rounding off the top 10 is the Frenchman Jean-Christophe Bouillon with 11 points. And just out of the top 10, Olivier Panis, after another points finish and finishing in 6th with 1 additional point. He's now made it to double figures with 10 points in 11th. And once again, to remind you, 12th place Carl Wenliger, who we are going to hopefully be seeing. Of course, we do know that Jean-Christophe Bouillon, this will be his last race in place of the injured Carl Wenliger after his past head injury assessment that he picked up following an accident at the Monaco Grand Prix from last year. And he's currently got 5 points. Yukio Katayama, as I've said before, he's currently in 13th with 4 points. But once again, he is out for this race following injury from, of course, that crash in the last race. And 14th, Mika Hakkinen also is got 3 points, along tied with the Japanese Taki Inoue in his footwork heart, and also tied on in 16th place with only 1 point are Sauber's Heinz-Hald Frentzen and Tyrrell's Mikasalo, who also unbelievably also picked up another disqualification for an unexpected and dangerous collision with David Coulthard in the last few laps of the last race of the championship, once again back in Portugal. So that is the Drivers' Championship table standings at the moment. Well, with that covering now the drivers, as we have a quick look at the Constructors' Championship, and all importantly, Williams-Renault have still managed to maintain the lead at the top of the Constructors' Championship so far with 89 points. They are currently 16 points ahead of Benetton Renault, who are got 73 at the moment, and then behind them in third is McLaren Mercedes with a 27-point difference with 46. But unbelievably, after that all-important race victory for Eddie Irvine, Jordan Peugeot are now currently tied in 4th place with Ferrari, and are both tied on with 40 points at the moment, and they are only just 6 points behind McLaren. So this is an incredible situation for Eddie Jordan's team, and they're not out of the championship as of yet. I feel like that if they have got a little bit of good fortune, and if they can have another points finish as of this race weekend, they could be starting to challenging the front runners here, which will be very exciting indeed. And once again, to remind you, in 6th place is Salberford with 17 points, and still at the moment, even though that they are 7 points behind them in 7th place, of course, Ligier, Mugen, Honda, but they've now made it to double figures with 10 points, but still in 8th place is Tyrrell Yamaha with 5 points, and still in 9th place, Footwork Hart with only 3 points at the moment. So there you go, everybody. That is a quick reminder of both once again, the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship tables as we move into the final race of the second European leg of this year's reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship. And also, we would also like to remind you, we completely forgot to mention this at the end of the last episode, but we do know that, interestingly, that we also launched a poll on, of course, the official YouTube channel of Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, and as we did have from just a few races ago of who could be possibly securing this year's 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship title, but after that and following from the votes that we did have, of course, once again to clarify, Michael Schumacher was set to, of course, continue that with a 75% share of the vote as it stands, from, of course, a few that closed after from the Italian Grand Prix from when we last covered this. But we forgot to do it last time out at the last round at Estoril in Portugal in the last edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. But we can also now clarify that we've also just got recent results, and following an amazing 26 amount of votes, of course, voted by all you viewers, and we'd like to say thank you very much for your contribution to, of course, that in this series. And we've managed to have 10 more votes than the vote that we had for the Drivers' World Championship vote that we had. But we can also quickly show you on your screen right now the results of, once again, the Constructors' World Championship title winners, or of course make that of hopefully of the 1995 Constructors' World Champion vote of this year, and the teams that were up for, of course, voting were Benetton, Renault, Williams, Renault, McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari. And we can see that amazingly, and it was a very interesting vote by, of course, shared voted by each of the 4 teams. But Williams, Renault managed to top the vote share poll, and they managed to they are a tip to hopefully secure this year's 1995 World Drivers, of course, Constructors' Championship title, as of they managed to from last year. And of course, it's interesting to know that but Benetton are looking in a very comfortable position to still manage. I mean, they've only just got a once again to clarify, only just a 16-point lead, so they only need another win and a second place. So if they do have a decent result as of this race weekend, they could be right back in the Constructors' Championship hunt, and they could really put the pressure on Williams so far. But they managed to get the share of 27%. While amazingly Ferrari managed to get third with 12%, and only 4% to McLaren Mercedes, following the impressive recent form also there by, of course, the likes of Nigel Mansell, who once again is already retired from this year's 1995 Formula 1 World Championship season. But some impressive points finishes once again from the likes of Mark Blundell and also Mika Hakkinen there. So very interesting to see that, but it's very exciting to see that, of course, it's remaining, it's going to be more than closer than ever. There's only just, you may think, of course, there is a gap there of only 16 points, but that can all change from these last 4 races as we go towards the as we've already passed the 3 quarters and the last quarter of this year's 1995 reimagined F1 season. So there we go. But as we get back to, of course, the circuit itself of the Nürburgring here in Nuremberg, Germany, which once again is hosting round 14 of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with its first European Grand Prix for 11 years since 1984, and we can remind you that this particular circuit is 2.847 miles in length, and there is a lap distance of 67 laps there, which is 305.252 kilometers, which in miles is 190.782 miles, and the kilometers for the course length of 4.555 kilometers there. So, but we have had an amazing attendance of over 90,000 fans as of this race weekend, and despite the wet conditions so far, it's still been, of course, the German fans are in fine voice, just like what it happened from a few months back at the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. And we can also quickly remind you of what happened with practice as well. But before we do that, we can also now clarify that we've on the driver changes for this race weekend. And once again, as we said, Ukyo Katayama out with his strained neck injury there from the last race at Estoril in Portugal. He has now been replaced by the test driver of Gabriele Tarquini, which I'm sure some of you have might not known already. He is also the former and current British drivers, of course, champion of the British Touring Car Championship, sponsored by Auto Trader and once again the Esso. And also we can also confirm that he's also recently took part also in the DTM series, also the Deutsche Meisterschaft Torrega Meisterschaft Championship. And we can also find out that from the last few years in his racing career, he's had an amazing few years, of course, as a racing driver, and we do know that we can also confirm that as being the champion of the Italian Super Turismo Championship, my apologies, he actually finished third on that, but I can confirm that he did win the British Touring Car Championship from 1994 last year, but we also do see that he also took part in of course, the DTM series also as well. But we do know that as well as that, we can also confirm that he took part in only just a handful of races. But it's interesting to know that some of the drivers are also future Formula 1 drivers coming up. We've got the likes of Keke Rosberg in there, and also Giancarlo Fisichella. We also got JJ Leto, and also Alessandro Nannini, and also Jan Magnussen as well, which unbelievably he's also currently one of the second test drivers for the Marlboro McLaren Mercedes team. So that's great to hear there as well. So we only know that he only took part in only one race from earlier on this year, and he only took part in only 3 races there, to clarify. But it's wonderful to see that he is, of course, in good spirits to take over from Ukyo as he recovers from his injuries. But we also do know that it will only be his only race that he will be doing. I think he's only standing in for, of course, Ukyo as of this race weekend. But also as well, the fellow Italian driver Massimiliano Max Parpis, he is set to be replaced back with Gianni Morbidelli at the next race at the Pacific Grand Prix at TI Circuit Aida. And also we've also been confirmed here that Jean-Denis Delatraz will also be replaced back with Bertrand Gachot, who is going to take over his seat again for the next race also as well. So that is a quick reminder on the driver changes for all of you there if you're interested. But we can also just remind you of the recent results also, that we have also found out that it says here that, as we were just talking about, of course, David Coulthard has also confirmed that he is going to be moving to McLaren as of next year for 1996, and he first signed a contract with McLaren back in 1994 in the month of October from last year, before his full-time Williams drive for this year, and was confirmed. And his one-year deal was later not renegotiated due to his McLaren commitment. But we do know that McLaren also have confirmed the team, of course, and the team principal, Ron Dennis. He's saying that Mark Blundell is expected to, of course, my apologies, Mika Hakkinen and Jan Magnussen are going to be continuing with their existing roles as race drivers and also test driver as well. But that means, unfortunately, Mark Blundell is currently facing without a drive for next year's season. But we also did confirm here from earlier on today that it was officially confirmed that the deal for David Coulthard was confirmed on the day of the race itself from earlier on today also. But also we have heard the prospective replacement for David, that being the Canadian Jacques Villeneuve, as we mentioned from earlier on this year, who won the Indy 500 race from earlier on this year. He is currently going to be testing a Williams car for the first time since it's been confirmed as Damon Hill's teammate and his replacement for David Coulthard. And of course he was running for 2 days at the Monza circuit from just a few weeks ago. The Jordan team are announcing that it would keep its driver pairing of Rubens Barrichello and Eddie Irvine. And but we do know that it's interesting to know here that the week before this particular race weekend, we do know that Ferrari had also announced that it also bought out the contract for Eddie Irvine, so he is expected to be partnering Michael Schumacher as he heads to Ferrari from next year. And subsequently also that means that Jordan have also announced that Martin Brundle will be moving from the Ligier team to partner Rubens Barrichello instead. And we do know that he is also back racing with them after missing a few races out due to, of course, being replaced now and then in between, of course, a few other races to his Japanese teammate of Aguri Suzuki. But we also do know that an upgrade, of course, update for you for the team's cars. We do also know that the Williams team have used their upgraded Beast version of their FW17 chassis for the second time after its debut at the last race at Estoril in Portugal. And McLaren have also bought upgrades to coincide with the home race of their engine supplier Mercedes. That being, of course, this being the second German, race in Germany of another German circuit on the calendar, even though it is down as a European Grand Prix as of this year. And they have also decided to opt to amalgamate, I think that's the word of how you say that, amalgamate the B and C versions of their troublesome MP410 chassis with a rear end and gearbox from the former car that they previously were working on from earlier on this year. And in addition of that, the Ferrari team have also brought a revised wing setup and side pods for its 412 T2 car, which both drivers agree to say that it's an improvement to the car. So that's good to hear that there nevertheless. So we do know that, to remind you all, as we quickly go on to the practice and qualifying before we get to the race, I feel like I'm rambling on here, but there's been a lot to catch up on here in this very particular race weekend of this Reimagined season. But as we get to the practice sessions that happened from from earlier a few days ago on Friday, we do know that Michael Schumacher set a benchmark time of 1 minute 1 minute 20.418 hundredths of a second ahead of Hill in second, and Coulthard in third, fourth Hakkinen, and Heinzhard Frentzen in fifth in his Sauber, and sixth Gerhard Berger and the rest of the field. But the drivers were uninspired by the circuit because he said Schumacher's described it as to be dull and easy to learn with no real challenges, and David Coulthard predicted a processional race without much overtaking. Well, we do know that there has been a little change. If you are seeing on your screen right now, this is of course the current layout of the GP Streck circuit, and as you can see, there has been a little change to the of course they've actually made the Vidal chicane a lot more tighter, following, I think, for safety reasons from recent accidents that happened, not to mention with Ukyo Katayama in the last race. So, but it's interesting to know, as we heard from the top of the program, most drivers seem to like this circuit over its 2.8 length in all around the circuit, even though the flow of the circuit has been broken up by that particular chicane, just to remind you all there. So but we do know that as well as that, along with this particular series, oh, my apologies. Now, I did actually get this wrong here. This, of course, there was an additional familiarization session that was held prior to these usual practice and qualifying sessions. So Schumacher set the bench time for that, but we can clarify that on Friday morning as well as Saturday morning from yesterday also, both sessions lasting 1 hour and 45 minutes, dry in the first session but wet for the second session as of yesterday, and very similar conditions to what we have leading up to this race as of today also as well. But Damon Hill set the fastest lap time in the first session, posting a lap time of 1 minute 19.343 hundredths of a second, and a 300ths of a second quicker than his teammate in second place. And the Benettons were third and fifth fastest. Schumacher ahead of Herbert, with the Ferrari driver Austrian Gerhard Berger in fourth, over a second behind Damon, and then Mika Hakkinen rounding up the top six in his McLaren in sixth place there as well. But the wet conditions for the second practice session as of yesterday meant that the lap times were slower, than there was less grip on the track, also because of those slippery conditions. And in the second session, Hill was once again fastest with a time of 1 minute 34.906 hundredths of a second. Coulthard was second with, unbelievably, an impressive third from Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Sauber, and 2 seconds slower than Hill. And the Ferraris were fourth and fifth, with Berger in front of Alesi, and Schumacher and Herbert were sixth and seventh respectively, with Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan in eighth place. And Olivier Panis in his Ligier was also in ninth place, along with Mika Salo in 10th, rounding out the top 10 there. And among the slow runners, we also have the Italian Andrea Montemini suffered a worrying moment when his Pacific car shed its left rear wheel, but he was able to return to his pit before any further damage was done to the suspension on his car there. So, we do know that we can also clarify, and unbelievably, this is actually the first time that we've managed to do it in this series, but we have managed to recreate, because of course in this particular game of Formula 1, that the qualifying results are to replicate the same order as the real life results happened from over 30 years ago. And amazingly, we have managed to recreate all 24 of course grid positions in the respective times that they were. But we can also remind you of who got pole position, and that was David Coulthard in his Williams Renault, and he managed to qualify in pole position with a time of 1 minute 18.738 hundredths of a second. And it's another 1-2 also for the Williams team, as Damon Hill also joins him on the front row, and then just behind him is his championship rival, also once again Germany's Michael Schumacher in his second home race. And then Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari was fourth, with an impressive fifth place from Eddie Irvine after his race victory from last time out at Estoril. And also in rounding off the top six is Jean Alesi in his Ferrari, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, also the other of the German drivers, in his Sauber Ford, could only manage 8th place there. So, but we're going to remind you of all of the other drivers in the full rundown of this, of course, 1995 European Grand Prix. But as we just mentioned, just before we get underway with the race, as you have not noticed, of course, as I've said before, I am grateful to be owning, of course, a very special, of course, bit of racewear, as I mentioned earlier on, and this is the official team shirt of, once again, the Total Jordan Grand Prix Formula 1 team. And as you can see, it is beautifully, of course, being kept in good condition. And for being a 30-year-old, of course, polo shirt, with, of course, with this style of collar as well. It's got all of the official sponsors, including Italian appliance company Polti, and also car parts supplier of Unipart. We also got the Total oil logo, also based in France, and also we've got the Peugeot F1 badge, which is also used for the supplier of engines, and also the car radio, of course, an electrical company, Beta, that also do workwear, based in also in Italy as well. And we also have Scandinavian, of course, lorry manufacturer of Scania there. So Scania there, and it's wonderful to I can actually clarify to all of you listeners out there that I actually managed to find this on eBay, and the original price was £156 with free packaging and free postage and packaging there, and I managed to get it off for I think about 20 or 30 pounds cheaper of £120. And I couldn't wear something any more apt for, of course, because also as well, if you might not notice with my red trousers, these I've actually worn these now for the 3rd time in my series. One to replicate the overalls of Ferrari and also McLaren Mercedes, but unbelievably the Jordan team happened to also wear red overalls as well, if you actually did notice the pictures that we've had of Rubens Barrichello and also Eddie Irvine in of course in any particular race where they've managed to finish on the podium. So but a great result once again there for Eddie Irvine, and as we said at the top of the programme, can the luck of the Irish and of course Eddie Jordan and his team keep this, of course, winning streak going with the next race? Well, it's about time to find out, as we're going to as I'm going to head over to the commentary box to, of course, join my commentating partner in crime, once again that being the legendary voice of Formula 1 himself, Mr. Murray Walker OBE. And before we do that, here is the full race, of course, and starting grid as we move on to, as we now bring you full extended race highlights of round 14 of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring. Here is the starting grid for round 14 of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the European Grand Prix. And starting on pole position is Britain's David Coulthard, along with another impressive 1-2 finish for the Williams-Renault team, with Damon Hill, his teammate, alongside him in second. Third is Michael Schumacher in his Benetton, fourth being Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari. Eddie Irvine, winner of the last race, starts fifth in his Jordan, with sixth John Alesi in the second of the Ferraris. Seventh is Johnny Herbert in his Benetton, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Sauber in eighth. Mika Hakkinen and Mark Blundell, the drivers of the McLaren Mercedes team, are in 9th and 10th. 11th is Rubens Barrichello with Martin Brundle in 12th. Bouillon is 13th with Olivier Panis in 14th. Salo is 15th with Pedro Lamy in the first of the Minardis in 16th. Massimiliano Papis is 17th with Luca Badoa in 18th, with Gabriele Tarquini replacing the injured Yukio Katayama starting in 19th. Montemini is 20th with Taki Inoue in 21st, Pedro Diniz in 22nd, Roberto Marino, his Brazilian teammate, in the 44th in 23rd, and starting at the back, in possibly his last race in his Formula 1 career, is the Swiss John Denis Delatraz in the second of the Pacific Fords.
It's the Grand Prix of Europe at the Nürburgring, round 14 of the championship. It's raining and the track is fairly wet.
FIA Formula One World Championship. Round 14. The 1995 European Grand Prix. From the circuit of the Nürburgring. And now, to take you through all 67 laps of this year's 1995 European Grand Prix, here from the circuit of the Nürburgring, it's now time to hand you over to our official race commentators. First of all, Jack Wright, then followed shortly after as ever by the legendary voice of Formula One himself, Mr. Murray Walker OBE. So as the rain lightly continues to fall here at the circuit of the Nürburgring here in Germany, and as the all 24 drivers are currently on the formation lap to then line up on the starting grid once again for round 14 of the 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship, and once again this being the final race of the second European leg of this year's reimagined F1 season, with the 1995 European Grand Prix. And once again, as we said earlier on in the programme, this is the first time since 1984 that this particular track has hosted a European Grand Prix, then as well being the host, of course, circuit since 1976 for the German Grand Prix. But brilliant qualifying there, once again, as we mentioned earlier on there, from David Coulthard, once again on pole position for I think that would be the fourth or fifth time this season, I think. But another impressive 1-2 finish there for, of course, him and his British teammate, Englishman of Damon Hill. And then once again with, of course, Michael Schumacher just behind him, also in third. And make that also, as we mentioned earlier on, coming off from his impressive race win, as once again to remind you from last time out at Estoril in Portugal, an impressive fifth place there for the Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, who is hoping for another good result in this fairly, of course, wet and slippy conditions. And we do know that this rain is expected to dry, of course, later on, and of course it's not going to hopefully remain wet all the way through, but due to one of the settings in the actual game, we are classifying this as the condition that started off in the real life race. So it will be a wet race to, of course, all the whole race distance, but we'll still be in for another exciting race. And also as well, hopefully it won't be as the dominant race win that we had from Michael Schumacher back at the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa-Francorchamps. But then again, he needs to win here to try and close the gap in the Drivers' Championship to David Coulthard. There's only 16 points between them here, so if he manages to win here this afternoon, that will close the championship gap down to only 6 points, meaning that going into the next race at the Pacific Grand Prix at TI Circuit Aida, Michael Schumacher just needs a podium finish and for David Coulthard not to finish in the points, he can be right back at it in the, of course, the Drivers' Championship. And really, Benetton Renault can also spring an unexpected surprise on Williams in also the Constructors' Championship with only 4 races to go. So, but it's still all to play for. It's still anyone's championship here, and we couldn't be at a more better place for this particular race. As once again, as the last few drivers of the 24 car lineup are now just making their way on the grid slots and to line up once again on the starting grid. Now here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, live here from once again the circuit of the Nürburgring here in Germany. It's time for the extended and full race highlights of round 14 of the 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship with the 1995 European Grand Prix.
Watching the lights, we've got real excitement coming up now, and it's go, straight down towards turn 1 they come. That's putting down a should be finishing in the points now. Superb! He's off to a flying start.
That was a very shaky start for Schumacher there, Murray, but he nearly almost aquaplaned going off into the first corner, but he was just trying to fight off Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari. He just keeps the racing line. So even though he dropped to fourth from third place, still a good start for the German here. Oh! He nearly gone for a move, but he just overshot the corner. Schumacher needs to take it easy. It's still very wet and slippery on that circuit at the moment. And Eddie Irvine is currently just behind in fifth. A good start for the Northern Irishman. And now he's got the slipstream, and he storms past the Austrian.
That's moved him up a place. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I wouldn't just say that, Murray, but as you can see, he was definitely eating the rooster tail of water spray right in front of him, but that was a brave...
Order. In first, David Coulthard. In second place, Damon Hill. He's closing the gap. In third position, Michael Schumacher. In fourth, Gerhard Berger. Fifth, Eddie Irvine. In sixth place, Johnny Herbert.
But as you were just, I was about to say there, Murray, that was a brave but bold move there from Schumacher. And now he's right under the rear wing of his championship rival, Britain's Damon Hill in the Williams. Through the Vercol chicane again for a second time, as David Coulthard starts lap 3. Schumacher really putting the pressure on Damon now. The weather condition...
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, as you were just saying there, Murray, he is really starting to put the pressure on the Williams of Damon Hill. I'm sure the German fans are absolutely loving this, even though we've only just started this race. He's right up his rear wing again. Oh, goodness. Late on the brakes.
In first, David Coulthard. In second position, Damon Hill. In third, Michael Schumacher. Fourth, Gerhard Berger. He's a bit off the pace there. In fifth place, Johnny Herbert. Sixth, Mika Hakkinen.
And now Schumacher goes for a move on Hill, and he's got him.
That's taken him up a position.
He just stormed past Hill's Renault there, Williams-powered Renault for that matter. And Schumacher has set the fastest lap of 1 minute 36.6262 hundredths of a second. Oh, he was a little slow there. He's just trying to make sure he doesn't skid the car. It is still...
The gap is closing. into the limit all the time.
It's still very slippery out there on the track. But Schumacher is really pushing a lot of efforts into trying to get past both the Williams Renault drivers here. He's already passed Damon Hill, and now he's just under a second from David Coulthard. Oh! Is he going to go for a move? He's going to go for it! No! He's overshot it! He just goes onto the grass, but luckily he doesn't spin the car. And Coulthard regains the lead.
The gap is growing. Race order. First, David Coulthard. In second position, Michael Schumacher. In third place, Damon Hill. Fourth, Gerhard Berger. In fifth position, Johnny Herbert. In sixth place, Jean Alesi.
He was very quick there, Schumacher, and he's passed this time, David Coulthard.
Beautiful. He's taken the lead.
Well, it was only going to be a matter of time, Murray. But finally, Michael Schumacher, as the German crowds roar with euphoric cheers around the Nürburgring circuit.
He's shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, he must not just be shedding a load of adrenaline, Murray, but he may be fairly wet in that cockpit, but he is remaining very cool and calm at the moment. As once again, to clarify, Michael Schumacher now is the new race leader of this year's 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring. And he's now 2.7. He was 2.7 seconds and now up to 4.486 hundredths of a second now. As 62 laps are remaining. As Michael Schumacher starts lap 5 out of 67. Coulthard in second, Berger in third. Fourth Joes go down to fourth place. And I think that was Johnny Herbert in fifth. And Frenchman Jean Alesi in his Ferrari rounds off the top 6 at the moment.
Race order. The race leader, Michael Schumacher. In second place, David Coulthard. Third, Gerhard Berger. In fourth, Damon Hill. In fifth place, Johnny Herbert. In sixth position, Jean Alesi.
Thanks for once again clarifying that there, Murray. And Michael Schumacher has set another fastest lap
On the edge, pushing into the limit all the time.
of 1 minute 31.372, I think that was, hundredths of a second. You've said that again, Murray. But Schumacher, despite these wet conditions, is absolutely flying round the Nürburgring here. Starting once again from third, even though he dropped down to fourth on the first lap, he's managed to make up that time almost instantly. Now, we do know that we were talking to, I think, we don't exactly remember the name of his race engineer, Michael Schumacher, but he's opted for a 2-stop strategy in this race. And his first pit stop will be on lap 22. And then, if he needs to come in for another set of tyres, he'll come in again on the 44th lap. But we do know that that was costly when only David Coulthard can only do 1 pit stop. But his slick tyres gave way with only just 2 laps to go at the last race at Estoril in Portugal.
First, Michael Schumacher. In second, David Coulthard. In third place, Gerhard Berger. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. Fourth, Jean Alesi. In fifth position, Johnny Herbert. In sixth, Damon Hill.
Where that particular spin cost the chance of Coulthard getting a fifth race victory of this year's reimagined F1 season, and he's already catching up with back markers. The blue flags will be waved by the marshals. He's already approaching the 40 course Ford duo of Brazilians Pedro Diniz and Roberto Moreno. He needs to get past them quickly here because they'll only just slow him down. And there we go, to clarify, it was 1 minute 31.173 hundredths of a second was the lap time there. I didn't have time to fully read the timeout. And that's past Jean-Denis Delatraz as Pacific. Just to remind you, this will be his last race. As of this race weekend, he is set to be replaced by Belgian Bertrand Gachot again after this particular round. Andrea Montemini will stay on for as the second driver for the team.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. Race order. First, Michael Schumacher. In second place, David Coulthard. In third, Gerhard Berger. In fourth position, Jean Alesi. In fifth, Johnny Herbert. Sixth, Mika Häkkinen.
Well, it looks like the finish, Mika Häkkinen in his McLaren Mercedes has now made it into the top six. We do know that he managed to get fifth place last time out at Estoril. But we do know that in the second half of this reimagined season, he's definitely managed to score more points than Mark Blundell by his, of course, by his British teammate. Schumacher is in a very comfortable position here at the moment as we're about to already approach a quarter of this race. In race length already. And currently,
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
how many more times are you going to say that, Murray? It feels like you've been saying that quite a lot here already this afternoon. Schumacher is currently
Order. The race leader, Michael Schumacher. In second place, David Coulthard. Third, Jean Alesi. In fourth, Mika Häkkinen. In fifth place, Johnny Herbert. In sixth position, Gerhard Berger.
well, that's amazing to see that Mika Häkkinen has now overtaken Johnny Herbert in fifth, and he's now up to fourth now. Some great driving from the Flying Finn at the moment. He's really showing that he's got a great Grand Prix future in front of him. He may not have been fortunate enough to get a podium finish as of this year, but we do know that he has got a lot of potential going forward in the next few years, and I feel like he's definitely got what it takes to win a Formula 1 Grand Prix race in the near future, Murray, dare I say.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Schumacher passes. Massimiliano Parpice's footwork.
Race order. In first, Michael Schumacher. Second, David Coulthard. In third position, Jean Alesi. In fourth place, Mika Häkkinen. Fifth, Johnny Herbert. In sixth position, Gerhard Berger.
Once again, no change to the top three at the moment. Schumacher continues to extend his gap lead of 17.253 hundredths of a second to championship leader David Coulthard and his Williams. Hill in third at the moment. Schumacher passes.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I think that was Gabriele Tarquini there. I think he overtook Finnish Mika Salo a few laps before. He's now approaching Mark Blundell's McLaren, who overtakes him with no trouble at all. Well, it has to be said, I think I have to say, Murray, that we haven't seen...
Race order. Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Mika Häkkinen.
Well, my apologies on you correcting me there, Murray, as we just heard there. Jean Alesi is in third place at the moment, and Damon Hill is currently out of the points at the moment, so this could be all important in the Constructors' Championship. We know that Johnny Herbert is in the top six, so a big points finish for...
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
For the Mild 7 Benetton Renault team is going to be all that important this race weekend. If Schumacher can maintain this lead even when he goes in for his pit stops, this will be very important going into the last three races of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship. Michael Schumacher has set another fastest lap of 1 minute 30.772 hundredths of a second, as he's currently 26.5 hundredths of a second ahead of Scotsman David Coulthard in second place. He's about to lap the 40 course Fords of Moreno and Diniz again. The Benetton team currently holding on to collectively 12 points, 10 points for Michael Schumacher in first and Johnny Herbert in fifth with 2 points.
In first place, Michael Schumacher. In second, David Coulthard. In third position, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth place, Jean Alesi. Fifth, Johnny Herbert. This young man really is a superlative driver. In sixth, Gerhard Berger.
We now once again ride on board, as we forgot to say earlier on, with Michael Schumacher's Benetton here. Almost 140 miles an hour going through those winding left and right corners. And now coming up to the Titan chicane, the Verbi chicane. See, approaches more back markers again. Oh, and I thought there might have been some contact there from, I think that might have been Delatraz there in the Pacific Fords. He made contact, it looked like, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen there, I think. Or it might have been Bullion because he was further down, because, just to remind you, Frentzen started in 8th place. Well, we do know that it has stopped.
Race order. In first place, Michael Schumacher. In second position, David Coulthard. Third, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth, Jean Alesi. In fifth place, Johnny Herbert. Sixth, Gerhard Berger.
Well, amazingly, Mika Häkkinen in his McLaren Mercedes has now moved up to third now. He is literally flying in his McLaren. Oh, and there's a bit of a hold up there with, I think that's Barrichello's Jordan. He's being slowed up also by, I think that's Montemini's Pacific. But as we were just saying, oh no, that was actually Eddie Irvine there. He really has dropped down from 5th place. Well, that's a real shame, but it'll be interesting to know on what will happen when it comes to the first pit stops. As we can once again clarify, all you listeners and viewers here on Grand Prix Formula 1, the rain has officially stopped, but there's still a lot of water on the circuit, so it might be quite slow to clear. As you can see that most of the cars are still kicking it up with the rooster tails of water spray from around the circuit.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. Race order. The race leader, Michael Schumacher. In second, David Coulthard. Third, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth place, Jean Alesi. In fifth, Johnny Herbert. In sixth position, Martin Brundle.
Well, amazingly, that the Ligier of Martin Brundle has now moved up into the top 6 now. And that was a near miss of nearly spinning out on the grass there on the final curb going in down the pit straight there for Michael Schumacher. Luckily, he kept the car under control though. Even if he were to still spin, hopefully if he doesn't waste too much time, he can still keep that time gap to David Coulthard by staying in the lead at the moment. As Schumacher passes Lami's Minardi once again. The marshals waving more blue flags for most of these back markers. But it looks like, I think,
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
in all of the confusion, it looks like, I think Schumacher has managed to catch up with Damon Hill and his Williams now. We need to clarify that is him from his black and white striped helmet. Oh my goodness. There is a lot of spray there, as you can see on your screen. Very, very bright.
In first, Michael Schumacher. Second, David Coulthard. In third position, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth place, Jean Alesi. Fifth, Johnny Herbert. In sixth, Martin Brundle.
Well, look at this, everybody. As Rubens Barrichello is currently battling with, I think that's the Ferrari of Alesi, I think. Oh, and a little bit too much curb there, but Schumacher doesn't accelerate on that, so luckily he doesn't spin the car around again. But the Williams of Damon Hill, I think that might be, if it is him, he's managed to try and clear his way of slower cars, and there seem to be...
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
There seems to be a load of traffic at the moment. On the circuit. Schumacher's managed to catch up with the Williams again. But is that Damon Hill? He was eyeing up a pass, but he just needs to be mindful of when to brake because he doesn't want to aquaplane and go off the circuit.
Race order. In first place, Michael Schumacher. In second position, David Coulthard. In third, Mika Häkkinen. Fourth, Jean Alesi. In fifth position, Johnny Herbert. In sixth place, Martin Brundle.
Well, I don't know exactly where Damon Hill is, but that's crazy how Schumacher has managed to overtake Damon. Hill is not having a good race this afternoon. And this could really hurt Williams in, once again, the Constructors' Championship.
They're really right on the edge, pushing into the limit all the time.
Well, Michael is just about to approach the first pit window of this afternoon's European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring. And amazingly, he hasn't made contact with any driver so far as of in this race. He is remaining his car is relatively clean. And he's not being too aggressive, even though we've seen that from him in previous races. Schumacher's about to approach his...
Order. First, Michael Schumacher. In second position, David Coulthard. In third place, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth, John Alesi. In fifth position, Johnny Herbert. In sixth place, Martin Brundle.
And amazingly, he has managed to lap his teammate there, Johnny Herbert. As Schumacher is now leading by 43 points.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
6/12 hundredths of a second. Well, how many more times have you got to say that, Murray? But he is really in his stride at the moment, Schumacher. And if he can have a good pit stop, I think he could time it perfectly and keep that lead as we go into the second half of this race. Yes, and we've just heard the call that as Schumacher starts lap 22 out of 67, Michael Schumacher from the lead is going to come in for his first pit stop at the end of this lap. If you may remember...
First, Michael Schumacher. In second, David Coulthard. In third place, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth position, John Alesi. Fifth, Damon Hill. It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that. In sixth, Martin Brundle.
Well, it looks like Damon Hill has managed to get back into the top 10, as we just heard him there. He's managed to get back into 5th place. And on the topic of Damon Hill, we do know that he was so dominant back at the San Marino Grand Prix, and he managed to finish almost a good few minutes ahead of the rest of the field. But in comes Michael Schumacher from the lead for his first pit stop as of this afternoon's European Grand Prix.
He's coming in for fuel and a fresh set of tyres.
Well, I think he's timed that pit stop well, as 50% wear on the tyres. A top up of fuel, it may look slow, but...
It looks to me, yes! That could have been faster.
Well, it could have been, but I think he was taking on a heavy fuel load there, Murray, which I think was wise. His fuel gauge was nearing empty just from going into the pit lane from the last lap.
Shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. Race order. The race leader, Michael Schumacher. In second, David Coulthard. In third position, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth place, John Alesi. Fifth, Damon Hill. In sixth, Martin Brundle.
Amazing to see the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen still in 3rd place at the moment. Schumacher's got a 45-second lead over Coulthard, while Häkkinen is behind by 1 minute 7 seconds. Schumacher Goes for a move again on Rubens Barrichello's Jordan. And even though you can't actually see it, as we mentioned earlier on, because of the wet weather setting on this game, it will look like it is still looking fairly wet out on the track, which it is, but we do know that a racing dry line is starting to emerge on the circuit right now. Even though I feel like that with the AI in this game, they'll only will only be sticking to wet tyres for the remainder of this weekend's Grand Prix here at the Nürburgring in Europe.
Race order: Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Mika Häkkinen, John Alesi.
Well, from the pit stop earlier on, the time gap has now gone down to 17 seconds from 45 in the last lap. Schumacher couldn't have timed this any more perfectly. He's in a very comfortable position here. And all of the German racing fans around the Nürburgring circuit, as you can see, if you just maybe saw from the some of the grandstands, it's just literally a sea of black, red and yellow flags there, the national flag of Germany.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, as you've been saying, Murray, not just about him, but a few of the other drivers like Damon Hill and Johnny Herbert, and also David Coulthard for most of the last few races. They've all had their time to shine in every Grand Prix race that we've had so far this year and this season. But I feel like that if Schumacher keeps...
Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Mika Häkkinen, John Alesi.
If he keeps considering what he is doing at the moment, he will be definitely on his way to his, I think it would be his third race victory as of this year. That's just to remind you, David Coulthard has won the most races out of the top, of course, the front runners so far this year, currently with 4. Schumacher currently with 3. Johnny Herbert with currently 1, and also I think 2 for Damon Hill at the moment, and of course not to mention last time out for Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine with his only but first Grand Prix race victory in his Formula 1 career from last weekend at Estoril in Portugal. Well, he's not just being lucky here, Murray, well, of course for that Martin, I was going to say Martin Brundle there, but then again, it's good to see that he's of course currently in the top 6 at the moment. But I do have heard that he might be joining you, I think, for, I know he's actually joined you, I think, to correct myself, actually, for a few races.
Race order. Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Mika Häkkinen, Jean Alesi.
And I feel like that with his knowledge as a current Formula 1 driver, competing in the world of this quite a new age of this particular sport, run by multi-million pound, of course,
It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
I think suppliers there, actually. My apologies for going silent there, everybody. But the sport of Formula 1 has definitely revolutionised and evolved so much since from the start of the 1990s. We know that its popularity has been on a huge increase.
First place, Michael Schumacher. In second position, David Coulthard. Third, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth, Jean Alesi. In fifth place, Damon Hill. Sixth, Martin Brundle. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, we would like to apologise for that unexpected freeze and skip. I think there was a scratch on the game disc there, even though that's actually our most recent copy. That's when we checked before we started, was actually brand new and clear of scratches, but I think that was also because of the there's been a few technical difficulties with some of the camera equipment from around the circuit due to this wet weather. But at least that hasn't stopped the whole race entirely from being absent of vision. As 37 laps remaining.
The race leader, Michael Schumacher. In second place, David Coulthard. In third position, Mika Häkkinen. Fourth, Jean Alesi. In fifth, Damon Hill. Look at that! Sixth, Martin Brundle.
Well, I can't believe it! What on earth was he doing? And I think he accidentally hit the rear wing of Michael Schumacher there of I think that was Olivier Panis's Ligier there. He was waved a blue flag, but I think he's got an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for that illegal blocking there, because Schumacher was trying to find a gap. He was trying to go over the curbs and not try and completely cut the corner, but no, that was Martin Brundle. We've seen it on his helmet. Well, that is quite an unexpected shock to see there, Murray. Hopefully that hasn't made too much damage on the front of Schumacher's car, but he still leads as he starts lap 31 out of 67 here of this year's 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
As he currently is ahead by 29 seconds.
Race order. In first, Michael Schumacher. In second place, David Coulthard. In third position, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth, Damon Hill. Fifth, Jean Alesi. In sixth position, Johnny Herbert.
Well, that was quite frustrating there for Michael when he actually saw that, because he did see Martin Brundle's Ligier there, but at the time when he was going to overtake him, he was already on the racing line, but he was going to be lapped, as we've already seen. He's already behind by 1 lap already now, Martin Brundle. But the question is, will he manage to keep that 6th place when he comes in for a pit stop? I'm sure he's going ridiculously slow due to the damage on the rear wing.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Oh! And Schumacher just skids. I think he just caught a little wet patch on the dry line of the circuit. There might have been down to the undulation of that left-hander corner. But luckily he kept the car under control. An incredible recovery there from Schumacher.
In first place, Michael Schumacher. Second, David Coulthard. In third position, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth place, Damon Hill. In fifth, Jean Alesi. In sixth position, Johnny Herbert.
Well, as once again Schumacher overtakes Jean Alesi to lap him. No change to the top 6 at the present moment as Schumacher continues to lead the 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring.
It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
Few of the drivers are starting to make quite some kind of unscheduled pit stops. They've definitely managed to pit a lot more later than usual here, so that will really mix up the race classification at the moment.
Race order. In first place, Michael Schumacher. Second, David Coulthard. In place, Damon Hill. In 5th position, Johnny Herbert. 6th, John Alesi.
Schumacher's caught up with the back markers again of the 40 course forwards of Moreno and Diniz once again. And now he approaches the other Ligier, Mugen powered, Honda powered for that matter, of Olivier Panis. Oh!
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
And that was an aggressive block there from Panis. He manages to get past, I think that was Luca Badoa's Minardi, but he made contact with that particular car as well, and he's got an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for that trouble. As he overtakes Austrian Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari. Oh, and that was an aggressive move there. I think that was from Bullion on, I think that was Eddie Irvine's Jordan. If that was him, or maybe Heinz-Hard Frentzen, one of the two. They've definitely got an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for that. Quite unnecessary and indiscriminate.
First, Michael Schumacher. In 2nd place, David Coulthard. 3rd, Mika Häkkinen. In 4th position, Damon Hill. In 5th, Martin Brundle. 6th, Johnny Herbert.
Overtake attempt. And I think Martin Brundle has moved up to 5th place.
These kind of conditions.
As I think Johnny Herbert had just went in for a pit stop from 6th place. We'll make that 5th place. My apologies. But despite that unexpected collision with Martin Brundle, Michael Schumacher is now nearing a whole minute ahead of his championship rival, and once again, Drivers' Championship leader at the moment, of David Coulthard in his Williams, powered by Renault engines. As we are just about to reach the halfway mark of this year's 1995 European Grand Prix. That was a very aggressive move there. I don't know who was responsible for that. I don't know if that was...
In 1st place, Michael Schumacher. In 2nd, David Coulthard. In 3rd position, Mika Häkkinen. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. In 4th, Damon Hill. 5th, Martin Brundle. In 6th position, Johnny Herbert.
As I was just about to say before you interrupted me there, Murray, Gabriele Tarquini in his Tyrrell Yamaha, or Mark Blundell in his McLaren Mercedes. As 30 laps are remaining, Schumacher is already lapped, I think, 3 of the top 6 already, which is incredible to see, even though he's just shy away from being unbelievably 1 minute ahead of both David Coulthard and Finnish Mika Häkkinen in the top 3 at the moment. McLaren haven't had a podium finish, I think, since the... I think it has to be... the Belgian Grand Prix, I think, at Spa-Francorchamps. But amazingly, even though he's not expecting to be on the podium as of this weekend, and as David Coulthard has actually gone into the pits, he's dropped down now to 3rd place. Amazingly, that means that Michael Schumacher is now... He is now 1 minute 27 seconds.
First place, Michael Schumacher. Second, Damon Hill. In third, David Coulthard. In 4th place, Mika Häkkinen. In 5th position, Martin Brundle. In 6th, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Well, and a massive turnaround. I think Mika Häkkinen has just pitted. So that means that now, unbelievably, David Coulthard and Damon Hill are now back into 2nd and 3rd at the moment. They're currently holding on to 10 points collectively, while Schumacher has only got 10 points at the moment for the Benetton team. Scoring consistently points-wise here for the Constructors' Championship. And amazingly, Michael Schumacher has managed to lap the entire field now. The last time that happened, you have to go back to, I think it was at the Belgian Grand Prix, where that was the last time where Michael Schumacher won.
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Won his 3rd race victory of the championship. So he is hoping for his 4th by the end of this race, which is definitely looking that way.
Race order. First, Michael Schumacher. In 2nd position, Damon Hill. In 3rd place, Martin Brundle. 4th, David Coulthard. In 5th position, Mika Häkkinen. In 6th place, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
And as we are just about to reach the halfway mark, this has got very interesting now that the Williams team are right back in it for this particular race weekend. If you had not noticed, normally the way the game is programmed, the AI do drive a lot more slower than in the dry weather conditions.
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I mean, we were certainly once again not expecting another dominant performance here from Michael Schumacher, but I don't think he's going to break the impressive record he did last time out when he won at the Belgian Grand Prix, when he amazingly managed to win over 4 minutes ahead of the field. But Michael Schumacher, as it stands, has been driving.
Race order. In first, Michael Schumacher. In 2nd position, Damon Hill. In third place, Martin Brundle. Fourth, David Coulthard. In fifth, Mika Häkkinen. In sixth place, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Quite the faultless race, it has to be said. And did I hear that right there, Murray? Has Martin Brundle managed to get into third place there? Well, we'll try and find out on the graphic if you did actually hear that there, viewers. That is unbelievable. I feel like Coulthard and Hill must have just pitted.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
But one of them is definitely has opted to stay out as Johnny Herbert comes in for his pit stop. Well, I feel like since he has been fueled, I think, to the end of the race here, Murray, I think Schumacher only just needs to come in for another fresh set of wet weather tyres to get him to the end of this race. And I feel like that without any other potential mistakes that he certainly would not want to make.
Race order. The race leader, Michael Schumacher. Second, Damon Hill. In third, Martin Brundle. In fourth place, Jean-Christophe Pouliot. Fifth, David Coulthard. In sixth position, Mika Häkkinen.
As it stands, this is Michael Schumacher's race to lose here. But there we go, there it is to clarify. Hill is currently second, and Martin Brundle, amazingly, in the Ligier, is currently in third.
Pushing it to the limit all the time.
Oh, he did just aquaplane a little bit there. He just caught the grass, but luckily he didn't spin out there. He just once again kept the car under control and remaining it on the tarmac. But as it stands, even though he made contact with Brundle, and then again he did of course receive a warning for causing a collision earlier on, amazingly, because of the pit stop, and I feel like he timed his pit stop well with his rear wing being replaced, that has actually all worked in his favour, as the other drivers have been pitting as well. That was a narrow, almost making contact there with the rear wing of Schumacher there, one of the Jordans. I don't know if that was Barrichello or Hill. Irvine. Of course, once again to clarify, Damon Hill drives for Williams, not Jordan.
Race order. In first, Michael Schumacher. Second, Damon Hill. In third place, Martin Brundle. In fourth, Jean-Christophe Pouliot. In fifth position, Jean Alesi. In sixth, David Coulthard. This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, even though that he pitted about 20 laps beforehand, I think he can definitely take these wet weather tyres a further 10 laps or so, and then he can come in on lap 54, and then I think he'll be fine until and take those fresh wet weather tyres to the end of this afternoon's European Grand Prix here. Oh, I was going to say, he nearly actually had... oh, well, he was going to go into the pits anyway. I think that's Eddie Irvine in his Jordan. Luckily, he was ahead of him there, but even if he was going to brake, I felt like that Irvine would have tried to do a switchback overtake on him. We'll make that a slingshot maneuver, but luckily he backed out of it just at the last second.
Race order. First, Michael Schumacher. In second position, Damon Hill. This young man really is a superlative driver. In third place, Martin Brundle. Fourth, Jean-Christophe Pouliot. In fifth, Jean Alesi. In sixth place, David Coulthard.
Well, it's good to know that David Coulthard is back in the points again. He's currently in sixth with only 1 point. So if he stays where he is, that will keep him within a 17-point gap in the Drivers' Championship. Even though that will be going down to 7 if Schumacher does win here this afternoon. Once again, we now ride on board with Schumacher. Still no change to the fastest lap of 1 minute 30.772 hundredths of a second. I don't think he can improve on that time. He's backed off a little bit because he's been so far ahead of the field. It's great to see though that after the
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
the 5th place in Italy, and also
Race order. The race leader, Michael Schumacher. In second, Damon Hill. Third, Martin Brundle. In fourth position, Jean-Christophe Pouliot. In fifth place, Jean Alesi. Sixth, David Coulthard.
and unfortunately he finished out of the point, sorry, at the last race. But this potential race victory, as it still stands, could make all the difference as we go into the last 3 rounds. This next time on Grand Prix Formula 1, already to remind you, is the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix at the TI Circuit Aida, which right at the beginning of the series, following an unexpected earthquake in the Kobe region of Japan, the FIA, of course, stewards had to move the scheduled race to the month of November.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Or make that actually, of course, the week leading up to the month of November. That being the last week of October. But it's going to be a lot more narrow and quite twisty circuit than to the Nürburgring we've had here as of...
Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
as of this weekend. But I'm sure that even though Schumacher's been outright dominant again here, we're still seeing a lot of action further down the field. And amazingly, as it still stands, Britain's Martin Brundle in his Ligier Mugen Honda is holding on to another precious podium finish for Ligier at the moment here. The last time we saw a Ligier driver on the podium was at the Hungarian Grand Prix, when we had a remarkable second place finish for the Frenchman Olivier Panis. And that's his best result in Formula 1, equaling a podium finish that he got at last year's German Grand Prix at Hockenheim.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
But previous years for Martin Brundle, he is no stranger to the podium, because he used to be actually unbelievably a former driver for the Benetton team when they were sponsored by the cigarette company Camel, and he was partnered up with a young Michael Schumacher at the time from 1992 onwards. Well, it was 1991, my apologies.
Race order: Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
No, I correct myself again, that was actually 1992, because Michael Schumacher started his Formula 1 career 4 years ago, back in 1991, driving for the very team that, of course, as I said, we mentioned, who won in the last race, Eddie Jordan, for, as I said, being the founder of his own team, Jordan Grand Prix. But former drivers, he had previously raced with Riccardo Patrese before Martin Brundle replaced him.
Man really is a superlative driver.
From 1993 onwards, and his best result, even though he is yet to win a Grand Prix in Formula 1, he still has managed his best result of second place, which he last did at the Monaco Grand Prix when he was driving for McLaren last year in 1994. But Schumacher has now hit the 2-minute mark in gap distance. As we're about to reach the 3/4 length of race distance so far of this year's 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring.
Race order: Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
We head into the last 16 laps. Jean Alesi has already been lapped 3 times, who's currently in 5th place in this Ferrari. For the drivers further down the top 6 order,
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
there definitely seems to be, unless there is some radical change with unexpected retirements or spins, this is the current top 6 classification that we could end up with at the end of this afternoon's race. Well, as we mentioned earlier on in the programme, we know that there's been loads of talk of the driver lineups for
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
next year's season of 1996. It's going to be very interesting to see how Michael goes to
He loves these kind of conditions.
Ferrari this time next year. But a lot more earlier than that, of course, but I'm sure he'll be fitting in a few testing sessions with Ferrari come the end of this season. But the current world champion needed to have a good race here, and it feels like everything has gone his way. And I feel like that we're in for quite the thrilling final quarter of this year's 1995 Reimagined World Championship season. And we just heard from the team engineer once again of Michael Schumacher for once again the Mild 7 Benetton Renault team, and Michael Schumacher's coming in for his second pit stop at the end of this lap. 10 laps later than scheduled, but there's definitely been a lot more. He's definitely managed to go a bit more further than expected on the tyres that he currently has, and then the next tyres that he'll get at the next pit stop will take him to the end of this race.
It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that. Race order. Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
And in comes Schumacher.
Unbelievable. He'd better watch his speed. What's happened? Ouch! Look at this! Look at this!
I can't believe it! No way! And I don't think, I think,
It's a slow stop.
I think Schumacher wasn't informed that Johnny Herbert just came in and he's made contact with his teammate. Well, I can't believe that's happened for a second time in this series, Murray. But it's a good job that he was a lot more further out in front than any other driver. So that was really unfortunate. I had no idea that Johnny Herbert was going to come in on that same pit, of course, same lap, sorry, for his second pit stop. The last time that happened, everybody, was when, I think it was when David Coulthard was going to come in for a pit stop, and then his teammate
He's shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Damon Hill ended up rear-ending him. That is a glitch of the game that they couldn't double stack both drivers for pit stops.
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Well, amazingly, we did actually hear Martin Brundle overtook Damon Hill earlier, but it looks like Hill has managed to regain second again. So no change to the top three at the moment, but we are heading once again for a fourth consecutive British 1-2-3 finish. Well, my apologies, because since Schumacher is German, but still amazingly, To still see two British drivers on the podium as it stands will still be amazing to see there. But we do know that, well, two of the teams are British, Ligier being the sole French team in the 1995 team lineup.
It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
So as it stands, Jean-Christophe Bourlion, John Alesi and Mark Blundell amazingly round off the top six at the moment. Sadly, I think Mika Hakkinen has just missed out on points. Another points finish for this weekend's Grand Prix.
Race order. In first place, Michael Schumacher. In second, Damon Hill. In third position, Martin Brundle. In fourth place, Jean-Christophe Bourlion. Fifth, John Alesi. In sixth, Mark Blundell.
Well, we've certainly had another quite eventful race this afternoon, haven't we, Murray? Not to forget, I mean, that is crazy how we've seen both the Benetton drivers make contact with each other. But just how the game is programmed, when you come in for a pit stop, you don't find out. If your teammate is in and they just stay there, but the way it's programmed, that was literally on purposely making damage unintentionally to the front wing, which had to be replaced, as we did see there, as it looked like Schumacher glitched out of in the place of his teammate Johnny Herbert there when he came in for his second pit stop. The tyres were fine though, but I think Schumacher will be quite angry with his teammate there on causing that quite unnecessary collision.
In first place, Michael Schumacher. In second position, Damon Hill. Third, Martin Brundle. In fourth, Jean-Christophe Bourlion. In fifth place, Jean Alesi. Sixth, Mark Blundell.
Because since it was just basically controlled by AI, as you saw, Schumacher's car only came in just for his pit stop, and it didn't stop until he actually went into the pit lane, so that was really unfortunate that how that happened.
Really is a superlative driver.
Once again, you're right there, Murray. But despite that happening, even though that he, I think he only had a little bit of damage on his front wing from making contact with Martin Brundle earlier on. It's a good job that he was so far ahead that he had plenty of time for his team mechanics to put on a new front wing to make up for the damaged one that he already had when he came into the pit lane. So we now are moving into the final 10 laps.
He's hard on the brakes.
That was a big lock up there, Murray. because I know he was about to overtake one of the Jordans there. I think that's Eddie Irvine. But he would have, I think he was on the outside. He would have actually kept that position if he went any further.
Race order. In first, Michael Schumacher. Second, Damon Hill. In third place, Martin Brundle. In fourth, Jean-Christophe Pouliot. In fifth position, Mark Blundell. In sixth, Jean Alesi.
But as we just said, to clarify, we are now
He really loves these kinds of conditions.
into the final 10 laps of this year's 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring, as the track is starting to dry out again, but there's still a load of wet patches around. The puddles have definitely cleared around the circuit, but there's still a load of a wet outer edge on the outskirts of the circuit here at Nürburgring. But once again, I think it's been another superb drive from the German this afternoon.
It's pushing into the limit all the time. Race order. Michael Schumacher. Damon Hill. Martin Brundle. Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
It's been another superb drive from the German. And of course, the German fans are going absolutely ecstatic in the grandstands at the moment. I hope that they will try and mind their manners to not try and invade the circuit after the race. We did know that that could have been expected at the German Grand Prix from earlier on this year at Hockenheim. I think Schumacher was about to overtake Frentzen there again, but he's already in for another pit stop. As we're about to head into the last 5 laps of this afternoon's European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring. As Michael Schumacher currently leads by 2 minutes and 3 seconds.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
Over his championship rival, Britain's Damon Hill.
Race order. Michael Schumacher. Damon Hill. Martin Brundle. Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Well, we do know that since David Coulthard isn't going to be scoring points as of this race weekend, that's going to make all the difference. Oh! Schumacher goes wide, but he just regains control going through the final hairpin. But I'm sure that even though Mark Blundell is a few points ahead of Jean Alesi in his Ferrari, but with those all-important points for Damon Hill, he's going to make up for Coulthard to try and keep that points lead for the Williams Renault team in the Constructors' Championship going into the next race in the Pacific at TI Circuit Aida.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
I mean, what else can we say here, Murray? He's just been dominant right from the start, even though he did lose once again. Third place to Gerhard Berger.
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
But he has driven another superb race despite the collisions with his teammate Johnny Herbert and making contact with Martin Brundle. It'll be interesting to see how they view that, of course, a certain situation. Oh! Schumacher spun it!
Schumacher! And he's taken that one very wide.
Well, I wouldn't say that very wide, Murray, but he just skidded on the curb and he just spun around there. He just caught the curb and, well, since they're still fairly wet and slippery, it was only going to be a matter of time before he would spin around. But a lot more later than expected.
And really is a superlative driver.
To be more specific. But even though, despite that spin, Schumacher is literally way out in front. And I don't think there's no way he can lose this race now here, Murray. He's already guaranteed his 4th race win of the season. He's proven himself a meister in the rain. That's how they would say in Germany.
Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
As we can also give you another little reminder that he is also the current Weltmeister, the world champion, as they would say in the German language. But this race victory for Michael has been all important this afternoon here to close the gap on the Drivers' Championship and keep his title hopes alive of becoming once again a double world champion, as he's the current once again defending FIA
Man really is a superlative driver.
Formula One World Drivers
Only 2 more laps to go.
champion as we head into the penultimate lap. Well, this has been, once again, another flawless drive from the young German here. And I mean, it has to be a statement right now. Can anyone beat him as the current world champion as we head into the last 3 races of this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula One World Grand Prix Championship?
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Here comes Michael Schumacher to start his final lap of the 1995 European Grand Prix.
We're into the final lap. This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, it's great to see that Damon Hill in his Williams is going to be back on the podium since the Italian Grand Prix when he got that impressive 1-2 finish for the Williams Renault team. But today, the day has belonged to Michael Schumacher and Benetton as he's about to head around the last few corners. And he is going to once again take his fourth race victory of this year's 1995 Formula One season. As he comes round the last chicane for the 67th and final time, Michael Schumacher wins the 1995 Grand Prix of Europe, and more specifically, once again, the 1995 European Grand Prix!
And there is the chicken flag.
It's a win for Michael Schumacher. That's a great result for the Benetton team. He's the fastest man on the track. He's in a class of his own. Can anyone beat this man? This'll really help the team in this year's Constructors' Championship. Well, I think he's got the potential to do better in the next race. I know the Ligier team are going to be overjoyed with this. What a fascinating season this is turning out to be.
Well, like I said, Murray, you couldn't say those words even more than once, as I said earlier on. And with that, unbelievably, another dominant performance from Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton Renault, and that is his fourth race victory of the 1995 Reimagined F1 season. Another dominant performance, finishing a lap ahead of Damon Hill in second in his Williams Renault, but an unbelievable podium finish for Martin Brundle for the first time since 1993 in his Ligier powered, of course, make that Mugen Honda powered Ligier, rounding off the top three. Once again, to clarify, after 67 laps, Michael Schumacher wins the 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring. Well, there you go, everybody, and another dominant performance there from Germany's Michael Schumacher And as we just saw there, the euphoric cheers there of all of the German fans there from the circuit of the Nürburgring. That concludes once again full extended race highlights of round 14 of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship. And once again, Michael Schumacher for Benetton Renault once again had another dominant performance in the wet around the circuit, and with that he effortlessly managed to lap the entire field amazingly multiple times, but not as dominant as what he did last time a few races ago at the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa-Francorchamps. But as we did see there, the German fans were absolutely elated with that result, and it definitely made up for, I think, him missing out on winning his home race in Germany. But that is the second home race for, of course, for the German drivers, so I'm sure that's a nice consolation prize anyway. For that being, of course, his now fourth race victory of the 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and that has really put him back in contention to take the Drivers' Championship title with only 3 races to go. And once again, we can also clarify another brilliant podium finish for Britain's Damon Hill there, taking another second place in of course 2 races. Another great result for the Williams Renault team there. But unbelievably, we certainly did not see this coming once again. The British driver Martin Brundle in his Reimagining Honda takes a well-deserved 3rd place and takes his first podium finish of the year, and that's the first one since he finished 2nd the last time at the Monaco Grand Prix from last year. And actually we've also got an interesting stat, because I did actually say of course I actually got it wrong in commentary from earlier on. But we do know that he, the last time that he was on the podium, even also unbelievably with Ligier, was back in the year of 1993, but he has managed to get 5 podium finishes from the year before that in 1992, when he was partnered up with then the young Michael Schumacher, who's still quite young in the series at the time as well. But he also, from last year, he got also 2 podiums also for the McLaren team, also with Peugeot-powered engines at the time as well. But amazing to see that achievement from the young local driver from Kings Lynn there, and of course I think he's got a great future in Formula 1. Even though he hasn't won a race yet, I know that he's still got the potential to hopefully win one in the near future. I'm sure of that. But once again, we can also clarify the other results also as well, the other top drivers in the top 10. And after 67 laps, once again to clarify, Michael Schumacher wins the 1995 European Grand Prix here from the Nürburgring with a total race time of 1 hour 46 minutes 58 seconds .249 hundredths of a second. And once again, Damon Hill finished 2nd, and he was behind by a lap, along with Martin Brundle in 3rd in his Reimagining Honda. And as you can see, unbelievably, we've seen all of the other drivers in the top 10 were all lapped multiple times, so we don't have to say any specific time differences here, which makes it easier for me to say, of course, which is nice to hear for a change. But the Frenchman of Jean-Christophe Bourlion in his Sauber Ford took another impressive 4th place there, and 3 championship points in the Drivers' Championship. And another trip in the points for the British driver, once again, of Martin Brundle in 5th, Mark Blundell, my apologies, there, of course, in his McLaren Mercedes. And also for the, I can also clarify that now, unbelievably for now, make that, I think, the 3rd or 4th time now. I think I've literally lost track, because since it has happened so many times unexpectedly in the series, we've had another British 1-2 finish. Oh no, my apologies, of course. Well, like I did say initially, I'm still remembering that from the last race, because once again Michael Schumacher is German, so my apologies for, of course, making that assumption there, so I can of course, correct myself almost immediately there. But once again, to round off the top 6, of course, a quite disappointing performance from the Ferrari team. But the fellow Frenchman of Jean Alesi rounds off the top 6, and once again, with Jean-Christophe Bourgnon in 4th place, he was behind by 2 laps. Blundell was behind by 3 laps, and Alesi by 4, along with just missing out on the points, the Brazilian Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan, of course, a Peugeot-powered Jordan, of course, Grand Prix car, also behind by 4 laps. And in 8th place, amazingly, even though he was, of course, only there for just 1 race, in, of course, place in replacing the injured Yukio Katayama, the Italian Gabriele Tarquini in his Tyrrell Yamaha, behind by 5 laps. And then 9th is Jean-Denis Delatraz in his Pacific Ford, behind by 6 laps. But amazingly, to round off the top 10, Michael Schumacher's British teammate Johnny Herbert rounds off the top 10 by finishing in 10th place, and once again behind by 6 laps. And the fastest lap also was set by Michael Schumacher there, of 1 minute 30 seconds, 0.722 hundredths of a second. Well, like I said, it was definitely a foregone conclusion with that particular race result, but that has definitely made all the difference now as we can quickly get on to updating the current FIA Formula 1 World Championship, Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship point table so far. And with that all-important race victory now for Michael Schumacher, the 4th so far of the season in Reimagined in this series. That now means he has now unbelievably closed the gap to David Coulthard, who just narrowly leads the championship still, but now only by 1 single point, with 57 points to 56 points of Michael Schumacher there. And with that impressive podium finish again in 2nd for Damon Hill, he still remains in 3rd place, but he's now 12 points behind Michael with 44 points, and 8 points behind him is Mark Blundell, thanks to, of course, the 2 points he got in 5th place there, staying in 4th in the Drivers' Championship. And Johnny Herbert, since he didn't score points this time round, he still remains a 5-point difference between Blundell in 5th place with 31 points to Blundell's 36. And Rubens Barrichello manages to, of course, he's now just a 4-point difference between Jean Alesi, who is currently only 3 points behind Johnny Herbert there in 6th, while once again Rubens Barrichello is in 7th, and his fellow Jordan Peugeot teammate Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine is still in 8th place, but he's just 1 point ahead of that being of Jean-Christophe Bourgnon, and it's interesting to know that he's also just 9 points behind also his Brazilian teammate of, once again, Rubens Barrichello. And also to round off the top 10 also is Gerhard Berger with 13 points at the moment in the Drivers' Championship thus far. And just out of the points, even though that was his first podium finish as of this year for, once again, Ligier Mugen Honda, Martin Brundle is currently in 13th place with a total of 4 points, and is also currently tied also for the injured currently Yukio Katayama, also in it for Tyrrell Yamaha, also with 4 points also as well. Well, with that covering now the Drivers' Championship, and if you thought that was any closer enough, it's a little bit more different among the Constructors' Championship, but still currently Williams Renault are holding on to a 13-point lead with 96 points to 83 for Benetton so far, and once again those all-important points scored there from Damon Hill are of course keeping Williams Renault's title Russell's hope alive to hopefully become of course, defending Constructors' Championship, of course, title holders for another year. But Benetton, of course, once again, just need to keep up with scoring points consistently, especially, I think, if Michael Schumacher can win the next race at the, once again, as we'll mention very, very shortly, he could still be right back at it. And also as well, if Johnny Herbert can also, his English teammate, manage to also, if they can get a 1-2 finish this time, next time out here on Grand Prix Formula 1, they'll be still right back at it, winning the championship hunt. So it's still all to play for. But also as well, if you thought that was getting interesting, even further down in the mid-field part of the table, McLaren Mercedes have moved up to 48 points, and they have got a 35-point difference. And two, of course, Benetton. But 7 points behind them in fourth place with 41 points are Ferrari, and they are just 1 point ahead of, more specifically, there are Ferrari at who are just 1 point behind them also in the, of course, in fifth place. Pardon me for cleaning my throat there. But in sixth place, after an impressive fourth place there from Jean-Christophe Bouillon, that means that Sauber have now moved up from 18 points now to, 17 points to now 20 points now because of that points finish there in fourth place, with once again 3 points there for fourth place. And in seventh place still at the moment, and just 7 points behind them, are Ligier, Mugen, Honda. Now they move up to 13 points thanks to the podium finish there for Martin Brundle in third. But still at the moment in 8th and 9th place, still with no points at the moment gained from the last few races, are still Yamaha with 5 points, and Footwork Kart still with only 3 points at the moment. So there you go, everybody. As I once again clear my throat, you can tell that my throat is a little bit, of course, strained after the incredible drama that we had in that race from earlier on this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. Not to mention, I think one of the most shocking things that happened had to be when Johnny Herbert came in for his second pit stop, and then Michael Schumacher was just about to come in, and because of the AI and how it's the game's programmed, unfortunately he rear-ended him. He was already in the pit lane, of course, pit lane area, of course, where Benetton were, where the mechanics were, and he basically the car glitched out and it caused damage when he basically rear-ended the back of Johnny Herbert there. So really unfortunate that how that happened, even though Michael Schumacher won the race. And I think the FIA are going to have some very interesting words to say about that also, with how that happened, because it could have been avoided. It was deemed quite dangerous, especially in the pit lane, and that shouldn't have happened in the first place, unfortunately. But that's just how the game was operated, unfortunately. So I think it would have been really harsh to give out a disqualification or a penalty on that occasion. But we do know that I know that Martin Brundle did receive one for ignoring a blue flag, and we do know that he accidentally got hit by Michael Schumacher and taking off his rear wing. But amazingly, with his pit stop, that still made all the difference, because he still managed to maintain that third place. So he got away with it, surprisingly, by some miracle, I think it has to be said. But brilliant achievement, though, of course, for the team, and once again for, like I said, for Benetton taking another victory of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship. So with that now being round 14 out of 17, we have now only just got 3 more races to go. And next time, once again, to clarify here on Grand Prix Formula 1, that will, of course, as you have found out already, that is the last of the European rounds of this year's championship. But next time on Grand Prix Formula 1, we're heading to Far East Asia, and more specifically to, of course, the Pacific Ocean and to the secluded TI circuit Aida in Japan for the Pacific Grand Prix, and following of course the unexpected earthquake in the Kobe region of Japan. Initially the race was going to take place earlier on this year in I think it was February. But since that happened in January, as of this particular year when the series and the season and this series is set, that's what happened, and the FIA stewards had no choice but to reschedule the race until later on down in the, of course, in the season. But very exciting for us to go back there again, and of course also just to clarify that the last time this race was done at the very same circuit, we can also remind you a bit more about this particular circuit, and we remember that last time out at the of course at the TI circuit Aida for of course the 1994 that being Pacific Grand Prix at the very same circuit, that was won once again also by Michael Schumacher, and it was also, as we can just clarify the race also more specifically as I get it up here on my phone, and we can also say that it was last held on the 17th of April last year in 1994, and pole position was also taken by the now of course late Ayrton Senna in his Williams, of course a powered Renault powered Williams there. Fastest lap was done by Michael Schumacher, 1 minute 14.023 hundredths of a second on the 10th lap of the race, and the podium consisted of Michael Schumacher taking his of course I think this is his first race victory of the championship, I think, to my knowledge, and also unbelievably that Rubens Barrichello in his heart-powered Jordan took third place in another, of course, I think one of his first podium finishes for the Jordan team, so that's brilliant to see. So I actually made a mistake in the series, that even though that we got one for the very first time in this series with Eddie Irvine finishing third, that was actually now the second in the career now for, of course, in the team's history for Jordan Grand Prix. But that is still a great result though, like I said, from the last race just before that, of course, with Eddie finishing of course on the top of the podium for the first time, and making that the third podium finish for Jordan Grand Prix, and the second podium finish for the team as of this year, along with Rubens Barrichello getting third at the British Grand Prix, also at Silverstone. So but anyway, like I said before, we'll be talking a lot more about this race next time here on Grand Prix Formula 1. And once again, to clarify that you can also join us for that here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sports Productions in just a few weeks' time. And also, don't forget, there's also other sport to look forward to here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2 as well. And from later on this evening, there is also UEFA Champions League group stage highlights to look forward to. And you can, of course, join once again the Gary Lineker from, of course, from the studios of Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions, as we will be giving you highlights of all of the games, including Newcastle United versus R-Uni SG, and also the other English clubs such as Arsenal taking on the Greek side of Olympiacos, and also Man City taking on Monaco, and we've also got the likes of Karabag against Copenhagen, and also Barcelona against the current champions of Paris Saint-Germain, and also Bayern Leverkusen against PSV Eindhoven, and also Borussia Dortmund against Atletico Bilbao. So loads of exciting games to look forward to there. And also don't forget, as we mentioned, that we can also clarify that England have qualified for the World Cup also in 2026 next year in the United States, America, and of also Canada and Mexico. They've also qualified alongside Portugal, but it also a very exciting match to, of course, in prospect with Scotland also hoping to try and qualify. They need an all-important victory over Greece. They have managed to win away to them already, so a home game at Hampden Park makes all the difference, but also the big game from later on at the end of this month, come November, is also going to be for them taking on the group leaders at the moment in their Group C, and that are Denmark. So, of course, we'll have more information on that, of course, as it develops nearer the time. But anyway, it's time for us to go here on this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. Once again, to clarify, it's been another impressive and quite wunderbar performance for Germany's Michael Schumacher as he takes his 4th race victory of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and things are really heating up between him and David Coulthard and even Damon Hill in the mix as we edge ever so closer to the end of this year's reimagined 1995 F1 season, and only with just 3 races to go as we now enter, of course, the continent of Asia, and more specifically the Pacific Ocean for the next race. Of course, we've got some more incredible races as we draw to the end of this quite eventful and quite unpredictable, it has to be said, Formula 1 season. But thanks very much for watching, as always, Formula 1 fans. And as always, if you have enjoyed this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, don't forget to give it a like, comment down below on your thoughts on, of course, the race. And as always, do subscribe, of course, to Jackpot Button Lewis Productions. And we will be seeing you in just a few weeks' time for the 15th round of the 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, as we'll have the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix from TI Circuit Aida in Japan. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time for the next round of the reimagined 1995 Formula 1 season. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Are we done? Woo! Well, there we go. That was another late one, wasn't it? But unbelievably, that was a great race there from Michael. Oh, but that was such a shame for the Jordan team, though. It was fun while it lasted, didn't it? Oh, but brilliant, though, for Martin Brundle, though. Amazing. And I completely forgot to say, actually, you know, in the real-life season, he actually got that podium for Ligier in, at the Belgium Grand Prix and Spa-Francorchamps. But yeah, I think that was going to be impossible to try and recreate that in the game, don't you think? Oh, but no, good to see Damon Hill on the podium since, of course, I think it was the previous race at Italy in Monza. So, but my goodness, have we got an exciting last few races of this season. Oh man, I'm here for it though, honestly. I would love Michael to come back and hopefully like just snatch it at the end, because he was so dominant in the real life season, weren't he, 30 years ago? Yeah, but just through this game, that could just all change. That's just mad. Absolutely insane. Well, anyway, everybody, well done on another great edition of this series. And with that being said, that concludes round 14 of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship on this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 with the 1995 European Grand Prix from the Nürburgring. And cut. If you enjoyed this race here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, let me know on what you thought of the race by giving a like on this video and subscribing so you never miss out on future races with more exciting classic retro Grand Prix racing action. And also once again, let us know on your thoughts on the video by commenting down below in the, of course, comment box. And we look forward to seeing you for some more exciting, more future Grand Prix racing action, all here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, here on YouTube.